much, Sabine. Always a pleasure to be introduced by you. Dear panelists, in this crowded, amazingly crowded Longevity Investors Lunch. Very, very nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
I've been added to this panel last moment, and I was really very, very excited about it because in my capacity of editor-in-chief at Cointelegraph, I have been following longevity research and innovations in regards to blockchain. And recently, I've actually joined a scientific hub that is called Exponential Science Foundation. And so when, unfortunately, the allocated moderator couldn't make it, and she's my great friend, and she asked me whether I can join, I was extremely excited. Before we delve into DeSci, that is one of the most hyped, maybe, concepts recently, and we'll talk about this hype as well, I guess, and how we can extract value out of this hype. I would love to give a round of applause to these amazing three people here who represent both the research side, the health and medicine side, and the business side, obviously, of the longevity ecosystem. And I really look forward to this conversation. If we may have a very, very short intro of your current focus and what is your passion currently in regards to longevity, in order for everyone to follow the discussions. Let's start with Brian.
Well, hello, everybody. I'm glad to be able to talk about DeSci. My name is Brian Magierski, and I'm a serial entrepreneur, mostly in SaaS business software for about 20 plus years. I got into brain health about 5 years ago. My youngest daughter has Down syndrome. I don't know if you know this, but people with Down syndrome get early onset Alzheimer's dementia as a guarantee in life. And after about 7 years of her life, she also is susceptible to autoimmune conditions. So she got hypothyroidism. Inflammation's part of that. It kind of scared the shit out of me, to believe. And I knew all about Alzheimer's, and I just got frustrated with the lack of progress over the past 7 years and the past 30 years. And despite 10xing NIH funding, not much seemed to be changing, and I got frustrated. So I'm in brain health as of 5 years ago. Started Cerebrum DAO, which I'll talk about more later, and we're funding research and therapeutic interventions and looking at brain health as a function of aging and trying to be proactive preventative, things that weren't traditionally funded. And so, yeah, broadly we fund brain longevity that way. And then I also have a digital app called Exponetic that's early upstream interventions, which is all behavioral change to teach you brain healthy habits and most importantly, get you to sustainably adopt them throughout your life.
Thank you very much. Thank you. From frustration to building, I like this journey. Let's move on.
Hi, I'm Emil. I'm a doctor by training, very, very long in the day. Always wanted to do something in longevity. That's why I studied medicine. But then got very disillusioned with the speed of academic research. Even though I think academic research is great, it just wasn't fast enough for me. So since then, I've been building tech companies, some in medtech, some in longevity, and now I run, apart from the DAO things, a research institute here that is run by my foundation in Switzerland and a biotech in Berlin, very much on the moonshot side of longevity. And within the DAO space, over the last years, I've built Cryo DAO and Hydra DAO, and now one more coming up soon, basically funding research that otherwise has a hard time getting funded, like very moonshot things, which of course the crypto space is usually open to, like these kind of long-term daring endeavors. Yeah, and longevity has kind of always been my thing and will probably be my thing for the next
for a long time.
Fingers crossed.
Longevita. Amazing. Let's move on, David.
So first of all, thank you to everyone making the time during crazy Davos. Second, I think Mark and Tobias are doing something extremely important, is bringing different community together. So I'm really fortunate to be here with so many pioneers. So usually when I was introducing myself, people are like, "Oh, I don't want to see you ever." I was a cardiac surgeon, so people was like, just to make sure you are the doctor I never want to see. And now when I'm talking about longevity medicine, obviously it's like, oh, I want to talk to you forever, right? And so I transitioned from being a doctor focused on treating congenital heart disease in children, traveling the world to do that and making sure I can extend the number of years children were living with congenital malformation, to now really trying to not only use my two hands, but maybe the collective intelligence to improve human health span at scale. And I think that requires a lot of different forces. And so that's why I built an ecosystem, a community called Longevity Docs, which now has 300 doctors across 40 countries, probably the fastest growing network in longevity medicine today. So my personal mission is really to bring longevity medicine to more people, to democratize it. And so we're doing that with the power of the collective intelligence of this community, education, and research. So think about having now, in the future, maybe a medical school focused on training longevity doctors. Kind of a dream, but why not, right? That's what we are in this type of stage, right? To set up moonshots and to execute on them. So thank you for giving the opportunity today.
Thank you very much. And I think you mentioned a pretty funny but also important point here. Sometimes the narrative built around this concept is extremely important because this also helps to promote. And sometimes longevity definitely sounds sexier than medicine. And DeSci sounds sexier than science. And everyone is talking about DeSci this year because of CZ, because of other developments. Do we all agree on what is DeSci? Let's try it out. If you are to explain what is DeSci in one phrase, what would it be for you? Whoever wants to start here. Try.
I don't know if I can define it in one phrase, but for me it's been...
Long phrase, Proust.
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you the reason why I thought DeSci was the way to solve the Alzheimer's crisis and brain health. And it was because blockchains and crypto assets, to me, as I invested in them and studied them, they're tremendous coordination mechanisms. And so when you look at it, you can, through a token and through blockchains, you can coordinate talent and capital on a global scale and focus it on a common mission. And so I was like, well, why not solving Alzheimer's and why not brain health? And if I can do that, and I can charge up brain power and capital, and if I give myself enough time, and if I believe where blockchain and digital assets are going as the underlying financial rails of the world, then you're going to have the most money there, and you have the most talent there. And this is going to be the biggest movement for brain health out there. And so the other thing it does is because you have voting power with these things, you're giving people agency. And so if you look at rare disease communities, they've been among the most successful at organizing to solve their problem. And the science community and the bureaucracies today are not here to solve a lot of these diseases and these problems. But people need solutions. And so now you empower people and the talent and the capital to go solve those problems. And yes, there's profit to be had, but we don't have to maximize the profit. We have to maximize the impact. So to me, decentralized science is the confluence of all of that.
Thank you very much. That was a perfect phrase. I think you mentioned speed as well, right? So is decentralization equaling speed for you? So what is DeSci for you?
I think it not necessarily increases much speed in science. I think because science just takes a long time, unfortunately. What it does increase, and I think this is the biggest pet peeve that I had in the past, if some of you reads papers, there's a lot of papers in biology out there that end with the sentence like further research needs to be done to see if this can be implemented into a clinical setting, right? And then because, researchers in academia mostly get 3 years of money or however many years, right? So they publish, and then the next cool thing comes around, and then it's much more profitable to go for the next grant that might be something totally different, right? So, and I think this is the one key of DeSci. There's an incentive for all parties involved to make the thing work that actually makes money. Whereas for an academic, once they've published in Nature, their job is done. Right, and of course, most of you might be aware of this replication crisis. Like a lot of stuff that is published never replicates, right? So I don't have any answer how to solve the replication crisis or how to solve the problem that impact points doesn't mean impact. But DeSci is a hope or a try that this might work, where every party involved, from the researchers, the funders, the people who support, are all incentivized to look at making this thing work. So this is the one thing why I feel like this is exciting, even though the science itself will probably take the same amount of time. But hopefully there's more translation from the bench to the bedside, where the stuff actually then hopefully is not ending up in a paper.
Optimized science. Thank you. What about your take? Would you add something? What is DeSci?
I think I will use 3 words so you might remember it. For us as doctors, it's doctors-powered research. Doctors-powered research. That's what I called DeSci. Why? Because back in the days, if you wanted to do research, you needed to have a sponsor, right, who would pay for the research. The sponsor could be an institution or could be a private company, let's say a pharmaceutical company. You needed to have a site, which was a hospital. A principal investigator was a doctor, different maybe subsite, and then patient. And to organize all of that, you needed to have a CRO, right, a company that would manage all of this. Now, with DeSci, we are able to totally put all this infrastructure in the cloud, digitalized, decentralized. So it enables to recruit more sites everywhere in the world. So increase equity, increase inclusion in terms of patient and in terms of physician or even researcher. Second, increase as well the number of patients you can get, right? Because it's cheaper to get patient as soon as you get them outside of the site. And then third, what I think is really interesting is you get an opportunity to monitor those patients longitudinally for longer. And so what we do at Longevity Doc, we decided that we could create a platform to monitor patients longitudinally, let's say for one topic today, which is, you know what is the most sold drugs today in the world? Any idea? No? So it's probably statins, now really close, GLP-1 agonist, right? A peptide, maybe a brand name called Ozempic. And so what we know is when you take this drug, you obviously have some effect, right? Positive outcome, but you don't know all the rest, right? We haven't had the chance to monitor patient for enough or longer time. And so what it enables us as physicians to get as many data as we want, real-world data, and monitor those data in real world, totally decentralized. So now we're launching a project with 30 doctors in different places in the world, and they don't have to send a patient to, let's say, Mount Sinai in New York, right? And so obviously there is a part where the blockchain and the tokenization, which I'm less an expert to be really transparent, but I think going to play a tremendous role, including smart contract and transparency in terms of data ownership. And so I think when, just give you a quick story, in 2017, I had this idea to create a wallet to incentivize with token doctors that could basically see patient and do research. And we call that EQ, like the money, right? Back in the days, EQU. And so I went and talked to Vitalik Buterin, at the time was the creator of the Ethereum, and he said, I allow you to do that on the Ethereum, which is a ledger of the blockchain, because in 10 years, everyone will run clinical trial on the blockchain. And that's what is probably DeSci today. So I was fortunate not to be one of the first guy who failed at doing it, but tried 7 years ago.
Amazing. So all of you mentioned inclusion of different actors and, well, doctors-powered science research, can be patients-powered research, community-powered research. Obviously, DAO has this design in it, and it is extremely powerful tool. Though I think that there is still a big challenge in including all these parts of community, because we are here talking about DAO, and this is an abbreviation that everyone knows. But if you go outside, if you go to any hospital, bureaucratized or even innovative, this would be definitely something that they will be skeptical about, that you will need a certain level of education, promotion, communication, marketing. So how do you think, and maybe you already have some examples to share, we can involve all the actors that could be there and using the voting mechanism in full and make sure that it actually becomes a different way of empowering research from the legacy system that has been here for decades?
I mean, so I represent 2 DAOs here right now. So we have one DAO that does replacement-like things, like organ 3D printing and these types of things, and one that does cryopreservation-related things, like organ biobanking, also potentially larger, like whole humans and so on. So very much on the moonshot side. If we collaborate with research universities, the DAO part for them, there's not much DAO connection to them. For them, it's a sponsored research agreement that is just funded by, because if you try to get a technology transfer office to be onboarded on the blockchain, it's like some universities are open to it, but mostly it would fail initially, right? So what we do mostly, it's just a sponsored research agreement in the end, but the principal investigator gets tokens. So hopefully the principal investigator is now partially at least incentivized to try to push this much forward into commercialization at some point, which of course is kind of the end goal, to where then hopefully these tokens might be worth more. So I think the full integration of every player into the blockchain world is not a realistic goal as of yet. But of course, usually the people who go around being able to dish out money have some amount of say of how they want to collaborate. So I think it's going to be a slow process to fully onboard them. And in the meantime, it's kind of this mixed solution.
We're taking, so blockchains and crypto assets have a user interface and experience problem. They're extraordinarily difficult to use and require a deep understanding of private keys and a lot of risk of losing that, and a lot of complexity in terms of even just voting on a blockchain. I think that'll change over time, but we're trying to go to where the people are and the communities are right now. And so there's a value proposition today. Yes, there's a funding value proposition. The researchers get funding. It's just coming from a different organization that was funded a different way. But in the end of the day, they're getting the money for the research. They're advancing the research. What we're trying to do is go to where end users are today and interface with them, and then make them aware and educate them about brain health and their brains. And as they learn more about that, then expose them to research projects that they can participate in, but in a simplified way. And so that's why I'm doing two things. I'm doing a Web 2 style app that's really training, educating, and changing behavior. And we're doing a funding organization. So the more they learn about their brains and their brain health, and they're engaging in brain healthy activities in their daily life, and that they understand through metrics and indexes what is important about their brain health, we can highlight research that the DAO is doing that could be relevant to them or to their family, and give them a Web 2, a traditional tech way, like a credit card or something, or Apple Pay, to participate in not only that research, but even through voting. So there's interfaces and ways to do that. I think we got to simplify the user interface, and then we got to look at, from a agency-wise, like from a university, from a researcher, from an end user perspective, what's relevant here for you, and how can we give you a proper interface to it?
And I think I'm looking at 3 points. It's always like, what are the barriers to entry right now? If you don't know what is DeSci, right, or the blockchain or DAO, first of all, you will never get into it. And so if you ask any researcher, academia, right, or even doctors what it is, they don't even know. So I think the first step is really to educate, to raise awareness, and to advocate for this, if we truly believe in it. The second is, don't you think they have enough on their plate, right, to just join another, structure or infrastructure that is really complex to understand? So what are the incentives? And most of the time, there's either time or capital, right? So you have to pick between both. Either you make it faster, easier for them, either you make it more financially attractive. But then third, and that's, I think, the most important, we are talking about human data. And so if you store human data on the blockchain, which is totally decentralized and could be lost, even though you have smart contracts and keys, et cetera, there is some regulation. I am based in New York, and you cannot store yet health data to run research on this decentralized platform on different servers, right? And the same way the Bitcoin was targeted and the crypto was, shut down at some point, DeSci could be. And so I think those 3 points again is the education, the incentive, and the regulation. They have to be really, taken under consideration at the highest level. And so policymakers, capital or funders, and then obviously educating each stakeholder of the research pyramid.
Interesting, and I think maybe in Europe it's even slower. If in the US the data question is.
I think Europe is even stranger on data. GDPR is even more complex than HIPAA. So that's where I doubt that FDA or the European agency would allow any research validated on the blockchain and DeSci, unless there is a strong advocacy. And I think places like this are the place to push forward the narrative.
Interesting that you mentioned that we need to be educated about these concrete things. In my opinion, actually, the narrative could be built that this is not something separate, DAO, blockchain-based. Like, we shouldn't even know that it's based on blockchain, but it should be a different way of thinking science, thinking research, but also thinking access to services, medical services in the end. So my last question is more of a future forecast. How you would love this to get developed. Also, what kind of challenges you can see now for the future in order to scale this model, because it's great to have some success cases, and obviously it's really amazing when we have these examples. But when it comes to real research, global research, and real then translation to concrete services of this research being applied, I think we are still very, very far away from getting there. But in my opinion, all the science should be decentralized in the end, as all the medicine, as now, obviously, you know very well, like you can have a heart surgery from one continent to another, and this is technologically incredible, and this obviously is there, but it's still not scaled to the point that we can call it a decentralized ecosystem. So what is your forecast, and how do you develop the optimistic and also some more challenging points while thinking about this future? Brian.
Yeah, I always have trouble with thinking that far out. I mean, we are in many ways, I think, in the dark ages still, as it relates to health. And the brain health side was that was the big wake up call for me, because when you looked at how we were treating brain health and all the tens of billions of dollars into it, we were like trying to reverse diseases in their very, very late stages in the most complex organ in our body. And like, if we treated heart disease that way, I mean, we'd be trying to test statins on somebody that needs a bypass surgery. And it just doesn't make any sense. So that's the state of the world we're kind of still in. And so, like, there's so much that's going to happen. My hope for the future of this is it's a global network. Like, you can plug yourself into a global network that is all science happening in the brain or any other part. And you've got your data, you've been tracking it longitudinally. You can plug that in a completely secure way. You can stream it into the system. It can map your personal profile against all the research that's going on, connect you with the relevant studies, and then incentivize you to participate in some way. Share your data for the study, become part of the study, and have a participatory role. So then the agency is really into the people that are affected, and they can just kind of plug into this network. And it doesn't involve thinking about a DAO or a blockchain. Tokens become a natural mechanism of exchange, and the security is built in through, cryptographic proofs and all sorts of other things like that. And the health data will never be on a blockchain, ever, period. It can't be. It's irreversible. But you can still use tokens to record and incentivize the streaming of that data that does go into regulatory compliant, secure servers that can be applied for research. And we can still reward people and incentivize people through tokens for that.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
So between the DAOs that I started with, we have somewhere between 20 and 30 million to contribute, right? Which sounds like a lot of money, but in research it's not really. So I think the one thing that DAOs need to prove that they can take academic research and move it towards clinical trials quicker or cheaper than the traditional way, in quotation marks. If they can't prove that, then what's their claim to existence? To be fair, there could be one claim for things that otherwise, like orphan diseases and so on, that are not really targeted by pharmaceutical companies, maybe. But this is one thing that the DeSci world has not proven yet, that you can move stuff to clinical trials and actually products faster or cheaper, or at least with a larger coverage than the rest of the field. And I think this will take a couple of years, but I think this is the one thing that is going to be the big challenge over the next couple of years.
So at the present, when I define it, that's it's doctors-powered research. I think in the future, if you look at the next decade, on the next 20 years, it's going to be citizen-powered research. Everyone should have the right to run their own research on their own body. Today, this is not possible, it's not even allowed. And so I think there is right now a way to think about the future where everyone should have an avatar of its own biology, right? Understanding what type of intervention could work on you, if that's going to have side effects or that's going to optimize your health in the future without testing. And so I think citizen-powered research is going to be the future. It's going to be allowed by platform and infrastructure like DeSci and physicians like us, like enabling as well the patient with the education. What we do today is N-of-1 research, right? I see you as a patient, I try different intervention in the longevity space. Some of those interventions are not validated, right? They have evidence, but they need more of those. But how do we do that without the funding of the private sector or the institutional grants? We can't. In the future, you would have, like you said, collective of people like us running their own research in a really precise and personalized way, uploading those data in a collective, platform, and can basically run virtually through digital twin intervention that could be validated and accepted, and then we'll go to policymakers saying, look, it works, but it wasn't financed by you. So that's why I see the future. Challenging yet, but really optimistic about it.
So much excitement about it. Honestly, thank you very much for all these insights, because I think there are at least another dozen of topics that I would love to develop with you: data, inclusion, connectivity of different communities, and every one of you has really have an amazing biography to share through this decentralized space. I really am very grateful to Mark, Lucy, and all the team for organizing this. I'm honored to be here, and thank you very much.